Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this first session in track 2. I'm your chair for this track for the day, and my name's Vaughan Waller. I've been doing this for a few years now, so some of you may have seen me before. On this particular subject is mobile learning, and I recall being hereabouts, not in the auditorium here, chairing a session 3 years ago, January 2008, which included a chap called Gordon Bull. I know many of you will have seen him before here at Learning Technologies. He was talking about mobile learning, and those were the days of rather crude mobile phones compared to the things that we've got now. Personal digital assistants were the vogue at that time. Does anybody still use a PDA? No, that's the way it goes, isn't it? Anyway, at the end of the presentation, I said to Gordon Bull, we're very much at an experimental stage at the moment. The sort of thing that we can deliver via the technology of the day was not that particularly good. I said, when is it going to become mainstream? When is it going to be part of the ordinary learning and development manager's palette of delivery media, delivery platforms? And he said 5 years. He was not wrong, because here we are 3 years on from that date, almost to the day, and here we are with the iPhones and iPads, and it has changed the face of mobile learning completely. And whereas before I was completely agnostic about the subject, thinking, yeah, I can just imagine doing a course on a mobile phone, yeah, really. Now, of course, hey, the possibilities are, well, just about endless. So today we've got 2 excellent speakers on the subject. And we're going to start with James Clay, who's the ILT and Learning Resources Manager at Gloucestershire College. In fact, I note here, he was awarded the Learning Technologist of the Year, 2009, by the Association for Learning Technologies. So he certainly knows his stuff. So without further ado from me, I'm going to pass over to James Clay.
Thank you. Welcome to New Devices, New Ways of Learning. There's my Twitter, if you want to follow me, and my blog as well. But first of all, let's ensure that you've turned on all your mobile phones, all your laptops and other mobile... Actually, to be honest, everybody stand up. Okay. Sit down if you're only carrying one or no mobile devices with you. Okay, sit down if you're carrying only 2 mobile devices. 3, 4. On a regular trip out like today, I normally carry in the region of 6 or 7. The record when I've done this before previous talks has been 17. But just to give you a brief background, my background is actually I was an economics teacher. I now work at Gloucestershire College, where I'm in charge of not just e-learning, ILT, which is Information and Learning Technologies, our virtual learning environment, mobile learning. They've also, bizarrely enough, for some reason, put me in charge of something called books. I'm sure you may have heard of this technology. It's really portable, very mobile, and well used for learning. But we mustn't forget old technologies when we think about new technologies. But I think it is important that we do look at the past. And I come from education. And in education, the academic term starts in September. Doesn't matter whether you're a school, a college, or a university, term starts in September. And you have to ask yourselves why. And it's very simple. We need to let the students get their harvest in. How many of you have a combine harvester? How many of you who work for business and the public sector and whatever break up for 7 weeks in the summer so that your staff can get their harvest in? We do things because we've always done in that way. And that's one of the things that I want to kind of focus on. Here we have a classroom from Gloucestershire from 1850. Rows of desks with students sitting behind them that would be learning. This is taken last week. Rows of desks with people sitting behind them learning. Okay, so there's flip-up-top computers in there. Mobile technologies regardless of what you think and regardless of what you feel about which should come first, which should come last, and so on, whether it's technology, pedagogy, learning, and all this kind of stuff, mobile technologies are changing society. They're changing the way that people work. They change the way that people entertain themselves, and changing the way that people learn. But mobile technologies is nothing new. We've talked about books. The phone box could be considered a mobile technology because it allowed people to communicate even though they weren't in the same room. I don't know who here's used a phone box recently. Go to Regent Street and try and use your iPhone. It doesn't work. But mobile phones, some of you may still have one of these hanging around in a cupboard somewhere. And one of the things about mobile phones is originally they were designed for, bizarrely enough, making phone calls, which is something else. But they have evolved, and they continue to evolve. This is a Nokia N73, which allowed you to do a little bit more than make phone calls. You could send SMS text messages. How many people here had an iPac, a PDA? And how many people's PDAs actually allowed them to do anything because it didn't have Wi-Fi, it didn't have 3G? Okay, this is a real test. How many people here have a BlackBerry? Yeah, I can tell I'm in a different kind of audience. Actually, if you ask young people love their BlackBerries. But things change. And I think one of the biggest kind of point of change was 2007. When a certain Steve Jobs in America said this.
Well, today we're introducing
I think we might need to speed this up a bit.
Revolutionary products of this class. The first one
is a widescreen iPod with touch controls.
There's a lot of clapping.
The second is a revolutionary mobile phone.
You can steer like that to me at the end.
And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things. A widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it?
These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
The iPhone changed the phone market. There's no doubt about it. If you look at the way that BlackBerry responded, the way that Google responded, the way that Nokia are trying to respond, they have changed the way that people think about mobile phones. And that iPhone, the first iPhone was rubbish. It didn't do 3G, loads of other things. But it did continue to evolve. The first iPhone didn't have apps. Now 10 billion apps have been sold. And it continues to evolve. This is last year.
We're introducing iPhone 4, the 4th generation iPhone.
The 4th generation iPhone. Yes, okay, if you hold it in a particular way, then you can't get a phone call or whatever. Better camera and so on. But in 6 months' time, there'll be iPhone 5. And that will have things like near-field communication, which basically, for anyone, it works like an Oyster card in terms of being able to pay for things and move things around. But that's phones. Phones have evolved, phones have changed, but things change again. And if we go back to 1993, Apple introduced a device which, to be honest, was way too early for that time, which was the message pad, or the Newton. Now, I just want you to take you back, not that long ago. This is literally 1 year ago, January 2010.
We have today. So now let's get to the main event. I chuckled when I saw this.
Just going to speed things along here. And of course, Apple's thinking was about, we have phones, we have laptops, don't use netbooks.
And we'd like to show it to you today for the first time. And we call it the iPad.
Okay, who here has an iPad? When the iPad was announced in January, analysts and people said, do you know, Apple will sell 2 million of those in 2010. Some optimists said, oh, Apple will sell 5 million. And people said, don't be silly. You know, they're not going to sell that much. You know, Microsoft have been selling tablets for years and have never managed to crack it. Apple, in 2010, remember they only launched it, they spoke about it in January, launched it in April in the States, came to the May in the UK, have sold, in that time frame, 14 million iPads. And just to kind of put that in some kind of perspective, 7 million of those were sold in December alone. Now that is success for this particular type of product. The iPad has changed dramatically the way that people interface with information, with entertainment, with communication, and will continue to do so. But it's not alone, and it may sound like a bit like an Apple keynote here, but I do want to talk about some other things that I also think are starting to change dramatically the way that people interface with stuff. You know, Android, the Google phone, Android tablets, which are all starting to be talked about now. These are, you know, Android is probably one of the biggest phone systems in the US. It's not iPhone, it's Android. And that means people are using it. But they're talking about touch interfaces, you're talking about apps, you're talking about video, you're talking about still images, you're talking about audio. Another device, which I think, you know, Jules Verne, which is on here, would have been quite like, is the Kindle. The Kindle has changed dramatically the way that people read. It's not replacing books, it's just changing the way that people read. This device can contain 3,500 books. In other words, I can put nearly a whole library relevant to my course on this device. I can also put audio files. It's also got a web browser. It's a hell of a lot cheaper than the iPad. But one of the things about all these kind of devices is they're constantly evolving. They're constantly changing. The Galaxy Tab, a 7-inch tablet. Everybody's trying to get in the market. Asus, I don't know how to pronounce it. Probably most of the things. I do have to ask, is Windows 7 the best interface for a tablet device? Is you try and poke that little start button in the bottom left-hand corner. You're going there, touch it. And I think that's one of the reasons why Microsoft need to rethink the way they do tablets. But it's all right. We'll wait until everything settles down. We'll wait until everything is, you know, the dust has settled. The thing is, things are changing, and they'll continue to change. This year, we'll see iPad 2, we'll see iPhone 5. In 2012, we'll see Kindle 4. In 2013, who wants to predict the future? These new technologies, these new ways of communicating, 4G will become a reality. Fast broadband, mobile will become a reality. These devices, are they changing people, or are people changing? But expectations are changing. Walk down any train, walk down any plane, you will see that some people are still using laptops, but other people are using iPads and mobile devices. People are using mobile devices where they want to, while they drink coffee, at home on the sofa. And it's not a lonely individual pursuit. You can use mobile devices with other people in the same place. It's about learners making choices. Yes, you may have the best connection in the world, you may have the biggest computers, but I would prefer to use my device, my laptop, because it's mine. And don't think of learning with mobile devices as an individual activity. It can be groups. Don't think of it as replacing newspapers and magazines, because it doesn't. It complements, it enhances, it enriches. And one of the key things is, and you will often hear, even though it's now 10 years since Prensky made this comment about digital natives is a myth. old people do use mobile devices. To be honest, the first time I ever saw one of these in the wild, in other words, outside academia, was in a coffee shop in Bolton, and a 50-year-old man was using it. That is the sort of person who's using mobile devices, as well as the young. Nintendo DS's core part of the market segment is the over 50s. That's a very kind of brief overview of my view of how mobile technologies are changing. They're changing very rapidly. A year ago, we only just found out about the iPad. And in that time frame, people who are learners and are wanting to learn are using these devices for learning. For example, want to find out about the heart? There's an app for that. We're starting to change, especially in FE, about how we think about learning. We need to move from formal as being the only way of learning and working alongside informal learning. Because informal learning has always happened. When Byron and Wordsworth got together in the coffee shops of London in the 1700s and started discussing poetry, that was a learning group. They just happened to use pen and paper. But we do need to be wary, especially in these tough financial times and with cuts coming off, of costs. The technology that we want to use may not be the one that we get. And the thing is, a lot of these mobile devices are in fact a lot cheaper than a standard desktop and have a lot more potential. But it doesn't just require changes in the way that we think about training. We also need to retrain the trainers, retrain the teachers. If we're going to get the impact in teaching and learning and development, and learning and skills that we're having in society. How many people here use BBC iPlayer? What did you do before then? You may have had something called a video recorder. Okay, you'd put in a tape, you spend 2 hours trying to program it, realise you've missed the program. I've still got a video recorder under my TV. Why? Because it's got a clock. Who here likes books? There is something very essential about a new book, isn't there? You open that book, there's the crispness of the pages, the stiffness of the spine, the smell of the paper. But one of the things you need to be aware of is when I choose the Kindle, it doesn't mean I'm never going to read a paper book again. It's not about saying, okay, we're all going to get iPads, therefore we have to get rid of all the computers. We're going to get Kindles, so we never need to use paper. The myth of the paperless office. The thing is, it's not about making a choice. Or is it? And the reason I say that, it's about giving learners the choice. If you give learners choice about how and where and when they learn, you're going to have a greater impact. But nothing in life is simple, and often we need to change cultures. And if you go and do a bit of research, you'll see basically, every time you introduce a new technology, you have these early adopters, then you have this mainstream adoption, you have the laggards, and then you have the Luddites. And what you've got to do is keep moving them along. And it's all these kind of wonderful theories and models about introduction of new technologies. To be honest, we've had that same culture with the introduction of paper, of barrows, of calculators, of computers, and now iPads and e-book readers. If you're going to change the culture, you need to know who your stakeholders are. Who are the key people? And don't forget the learners. Often it does. You're going to have to involve the whole organisation. This isn't just about the L&D department. This is the whole organisation. And the key one that you have to incorporate is the innovation prevention department. Every organisation has an innovation prevention department. They go by different names. Yours may be called finance, HR, IT services. And their job is to prevent innovation. Not knowingly, they just do it. So when the iPhone came out, I went to my finance department and said, I'd like an iPhone. And they said, we only do Vodafone. No, I'd like an iPhone. It's on O2. We only do Vodafone. I kind of got that, but I want an iPhone. We only do Vodafone and Nokia. It's just like, no, I want an iPhone. It's the same when I wanted to get a Sanyo camera that was waterproof, that ran on SD cards. We only do Sony. Yeah, but why can't I buy a Sanyo camera? We only do Sony. Yes, I kind of got that. We only do Sony. Will you just shut up? We only do Sony. And it's the same. We don't do things because, why don't they change? Because that's the way we do it. They do things because they've always done them that way. But you need to be the person at the front, well, literally at the back, going, why? Why do we do things we always do? I'm a bit wary because I've got Rich coming up next, and he is from the British Army. So I don't know if this story is apocryphal or true. But the Royal Horse Artillery have not used horses for 90 years, okay? But they still have 5 people to fire each gun. 4 to fire the gun and 1 to hold the horses. We do things because we've always done them that way. So where do we go from now? Well, it's not just about saying, okay, we're going to do what we already do and put it on the device. We're going to take all our learning materials, all our content, and we're going to put them on the iPad. It's never as simple as that, because basically what you're saying is, ooh, iPad, shiny things, I'm going to use those. It's about recognizing the potential of this kind of technology. And we're still at that early stage. E-books don't replace books, but e-books are evolving. Books that contain video, books that contain animation, books that allow you to communicate with the author. Imagine being able to read a book and say, I don't understand that bit. I'll ask whoever wrote it, or a piece of learning content. Easy access. I don't know about you, but I'm still gobsmacked that I can answer email at 125 miles an hour on a first Great Western high-speed train. I even sometimes write that, I'm sending this from a train. It's just that. Apart from the fact once I get past Reading, and then the connectivity just goes. It's changing the way we think about learning and moving away from content, thinking about activity. Of course, assessment models are something, and in education, that's something we really have to battle against. It's like, well, what's the point of doing all this if at the end of the 2 years, they just have to write an essay? Handwrite an essay. Not use a computer, not use a keyboard. Assessment models need to change as well. And that's why you need to kind of get all your stakeholders involved. But one of the things that mobile devices bring to learning is flexibility. The ability to be able to learn where and when you want to. The ability to be able to communicate. Learning conversations. Being able to talk with other learners. Being able to talk with the tutor, whether they be asynchronously or synchronously. It allows people to collaborate together on projects. I love the word collaboration because it just reminds me of World War II France. It's like, you will tell us who your collaborators are, really working together on a project. You will tell us their names. I've apologised to any Germans in the audience. Now, learning is going to change. Now, who's this? Yeah. He once said, times are a-changing. And my question to you and your organisations, are you a-changing? Thank you very much.
Right, well, we're going to now see how mobile learning devices are